So, what exactly are emotions and feelings, and why do we need them anyways? Let's tackle the what first. The word emotion itself tells us a lot. It's made up of two elements E or EX, which means towards the outside, and motion, which is movement. So, emotions are something that work from the inside out to get us to move or behave in some way. And it does it through neurochemical signals that travel from the brain to the body along a pathway made up of nerves and cells. So, said another way, emotions are the physiological body response to a stimulus. They are what we sense within our bodies and what we express out of our bodies through action or behavior. So, one more time. Emotions are a neurochemical, physiological response that travels from the brain to the body through nerves and cells in order to get us to move or act in some way. And this action even includes how we speak or what we say. Sometimes we use that as a type of action to neutralize fight or flight chemicals in our bodies instead of moving our extremities. Now, there's another big player in the emotional response system that we're going to get to later. But for now, this is what I need you to know about emotions. A response to a stimulus felt in the body. Purpose is to get us to move, act, or behave in some way. Now, let's talk about feelings. So, where emotion is the physically felt neurochemical response in our bodies, feelings are how we describe or experience the emotion in our minds. It's how we interpret or label the physical emotional response. In other words, a feeling helps us to describe the whole experience of the emotional body response combined with the person, thought, or situation that it's tied to. So, to repeat that, feelings are like a label that we use to describe the physically felt emotion combined with the person, thought, or scenario that's present when it's activated. Let's go over these terms in a bit more detail because it may be a new way of looking at it for many of you. So, we just said that an emotion is the response to something that we feel in our bodies. And by the way, emotional responses come in a variety of intensities. They can be set off in full volume, low volume, or somewhere in between, kind of like a dial. But an emotional response travels throughout the body. So an emotional experience is really a brain and body or whole body experience. And why do we feel emotion in the body? Because the purpose of emotion is to get us to move, behave, or take action in some way. Primarily, either to keep us safe and alive or to help our species survive by making babies. I mean, now, of course, those kinds of emotional responses are some of the ones we enjoy the most, right? But taking a physical action or moving in some way is the purpose of emotion. So that's why emotions are transmitted to and sensed in the body. Now, some of the more commonly reported places that we sense an emotional response are the face, the throat, our chest, the stomach, shoulders, low back, and the hands. Now, as a contrast, a feeling is like your brain's description about the emotional body experience combined with the person, situation, or experience that went along with it. For example, when I see my dog Quincy, he's the stimulus or what seems to activate my emotional response. I may have a pleasant mixed emotional response in my body that includes chemicals like adrenaline for excitement or dopamine, because I know it's going to feel so nice to pet him, and oxytocin, the cuddle or cuteness hormone. All three of those hormones or chemicals go off and activate a combined emotional response in my body whenever I see my dog. I may refer to it or label the entire experience as feeling happy. The label of happy describes the physical body sensation that I get combined with the stimulus of my sweet boy. So here's another example. When I forget someone's name, sometimes I see a disappointed face. Now, in this case, a face that looks disappointed is the apparent stimulus. Next, I have an emotional neurochemical response that dilates my blood vessels and makes my cheeks hot and flushed. My brain interprets or I label the entire experience as feeling embarrassed. The feeling I refer to as embarrassment is a label that describes the physical body sensation of the emotional response combined with the disappointed face. Are you with me? Now, why is it important to point out the stimulus, in this case, the disappointed face, in this definition of a feeling instead of just the emotional body response by itself? The answer is because in a different situation with a different stimulus, I may have a different label for the same body response. Other than embarrassment, is there any situation where your blood vessels may dilate and cause your face to flush? Sure. How about when you're feeling flattered? Someone paying you a compliment is the apparent stimulus there. But the physical emotional response is the same. Yet we interpret the situation differently and we give it a different feeling label because the context or apparent stimulus has changed. The point I'm trying to make is that feelings are the label we give the entire emotional experience, and that emotional experience has two key components: the neurochemical body response and the stimulus that went with it or seemed to activate it. And that stimulus can be a person, a thought, an object, or simply a situation that you're part of. Let's practice with a few more common examples using the emotional neurochemical response of adrenaline. So here on this slide, we have the stimulus, which is a situation, person, thought, or object. We have an emotional response, which we feel in the body in different volumes. And those two combined, we give a feeling label, right? So let's try an example. You made a mistake and you hurt somebody that you cared about. What do you think the emotional response is here? Adrenaline, like to run away because you feel bad. And the feeling label that we give these two combined? Shame or guilt, right? Let's do another one. Watching a horror movie. What do you think the emotional response is? Yep, adrenaline. Now, when it's combined with this, what's the feeling that we give it, the feeling label? Scared. Let's keep going. Leaving on vacation. What do you think the emotional response in our body is for that one? Surprise, it's adrenaline again. And this time, maybe with a touch of dopamine, because that's the reward chemical and you're kind of looking forward to it. So when it's combined here, what's the feeling that we call it? Excitement. Let's do one more. Getting on stage to do a speech. All right. What do you think the emotional response is for that one? Yep, adrenaline again. And this time when it's combined here, what do most of us call that? Nervous. Now, what's interesting is, have you ever known people who kind of have these two flip-flopped? Like, I know some people who, leaving on vacation, it really makes them feel nervous because they're worried about the hotel or entertaining their kids or if the flight will be on time, right? And I know some people who, getting on stage, they just love it. So when they combine their body sensation with that, they label it excitement. Interesting though, right? The emotional response is pretty much the same. The stimulus changes, which we give it a different feeling label depending on that. And even between different people, we can have different feeling names for similar emotional responses. Interesting. So we're going to do more examples along the way. So don't worry about getting this perfectly right now. Just remember, emotions we feel in the body in relation to a stimulus. Feelings are a sort of label that we kind of put on the whole thing to describe it. So when someone asks you, how do you feel today? What's the stimulus here? What is our answer describing? Well, whether you realize it or not, what you answer is referring to what your body has emotionally experienced in relation to the day so far. In this case, the stimulus that your body is responding to is the day in general, or how you've been interpreting what's been happening so far that day. And the intensity of those body sensations that you experience throughout the day, the ones that you describe with a feeling label, are based on belief patterns that your brain has deeply and unconsciously automated. More on that as we go along. So we understand that the fundamental purpose of emotion is to get us to move or take action. So we stay alive and keep making babies. But I'm going to suggest another reason that may be more reflective of my own personal insight than that of hard science. I believe that emotions also contribute to our lives, not only by helping us to avoid death and to procreate, but I also believe emotions keep us interested in prolonging our life. How? By making it a much more enjoyable and richer experience, and by helping us to deeply connect to other people. Now, granted, not all emotions are comfortable and enjoyable, but unfortunately, we can't select our emotions. We can't just keep the uncomfortable ones completely at bay while turning up the throttle only on the ones that feel good. I mean, believe me, most of us have tried that, right? We've either become highly skilled at avoiding uncomfortable emotions, distracting ourselves from feeling them, attempting to numb them out of our bodies, or we focus only on pleasure or constant stimulus seeking in an exaggerated attempt to feel only the comfortable emotions. And then what happens? We become addicted to or overly dependent on these pleasure-chasing, pain-avoidant behaviors. More on that later. But what I think we all know at heart is that these emotion avoidance strategies, they may work for a while, but eventually we pay a price. We pay for it with our health. We pay for it with our relationships. We pay for it in wasted time, or sometimes, unfortunately, some people even pay for it with their lives. So maybe now's a good time to learn a different approach to managing and living with emotion. That way, we don't have to keep denying half of who we are as humans. So let's do a quick section review, and we're going to do something like this after most of the sections, just for fun. So you have to try to guess the fill in the blank. Emotion is a physiological response that is felt where? In the body, in response to a stimulus. Feelings are like a label that describes the emotion combined with the stimulus. Emotions and feelings help us to stay safe and alive, and also what? Connect with other people and enjoy life. Fantastic. Let's move on.